Thanks for tuning in to our webinar. We are with Integrated Wealth Management. My name is Tracy Williams, and I'm here with Ben Grosko. And we're a local firm here in Greene, Ohio, if you're around this area, right outside of Akron and Akron-Canton area. And we do events like this because we feel it's important to educate the general public to not only financial planning, but really retirement planning. You'll meet a lot of people who say they're financial advisors, but retirement planning we feel is completely different. And we have a calling to really share that with women, as we know that they deal with some challenges that men do not. And I can say that Ben can't. And so we just wanted to inform you today on some different things that you should be thinking about as you enter into your retirement years.
That's right. And the best thing about listening to this webinar is we're going to give you some really neat ideas, some things you really need to be thinking about as you're beginning to maybe thinking about retirement, and maybe you are retired. The fact is, we serve a lot of women that have been divorced, widowed. That's a big bulk of what our business is. And we know the challenges that you have faced for the last 30 or 40 years. And we're going to bring you some really cool things today we think will help you. And you're going to have the opportunity today to schedule a 15-minute phone call to see how we can help you answer any questions that you have, maybe get you on the right track. That's probably one of the best things we really get to do with all the folks that do call us and the phone calls or the Zooms, is we really get to help you no matter what. Whether you've got money, whether you don't have money, we're going to help you.
Right. And so my passion for this is, not only because I'm female, but, years ago, my very best friend who I've been friends with for years and years, I got a call. I was actually interviewing a worker, and I got a call from her that I noticed, and I, of course, silenced it. I'm like, I can't take this now. Phone rang again. I, slid a quick message. Hey, can't talk. I'll call you back. And when it rang that third time, I knew something was wrong and I needed to call and find out. So I picked up the phone, and it was my best friend's sister, actually. And she was saying that Kelly needed me because her husband had passed away. I couldn't believe it. I mean, he was just the Marlboro man, tough and strong, and such the provider for the family. And I honestly thought it was a mistake, that maybe she must have met her dad, certainly not her husband. But finding out that it was, and here is this, great provider who has provided all these years, and now she has to figure it out on her own. And, watching her go through that process, going through a divorce myself where I've had to kind of rebuild, I know what it's like to kind of go through the unknowns and trying to figure it out on our own. So this is our team here. We all kind of have our unique story that we bring to things, and it's Ben and I's opportunity to share with you this afternoon, and we're just glad that you're here with us. So I'll let Ben talk about how we look at retirement, and the things you need to look for.
Yeah. So what a perfect example. If you think about your life in the last 30 or 40 years that you've been working, maybe you've been part of those years you've been raising kids. Everybody, what Tracy said, his story is totally different. But anyway, now you could be thinking about, when can I retire? Is now the time to retire? Do I have enough to retire? Well, if you look at the mountain, is all of us have spent our lives hopefully saving some money for retirement. So for every year we try to save, and all of a sudden we've built whatever the amount is, our nest egg that we're going to hopefully use in retirement. So we get to that top of that mountain, and really the challenge is for most people that are retiring, especially women, because they have so much going on. I think about our clients. A lot of them take care of their parents that are older. It bears, the weight on their shoulders, and they really just don't have time to take care of their own things. They're so busy taking care of everybody else. Well, now you're at the top of this mountain. Retirement's here. How in the world do you figure out to make your money last for the rest of your life? So now you're going down the mountain. Now you're not saving anymore. Now you need to pull money out, and that's where we really help you figure out a way of, here's a plan. Here's a retirement plan. Here's an income plan for you that you can look at and say, I'm pretty confident I'm not going to run out of money.
So we talk about that there really is no retirement without income. And, it's not the day that you run out of money that's the hardest day for you. It's that eye-opening day when you realize, I'm retiring at 62, 65, but now we're living longer, right? So now 90s, I think Ben's grandma's in her 90s, and
Yep.
you our grandparents didn't used to live that old. And so you look at that and you're really counting it up and seeing that a third of your life is spent in retirement. And most people, like Ben said, and we are accumulating, looking toward retirement, but we don't actually plan for what happens when you get there. What's that look like? And so we want you to feel like you know what that plan is, and are able to do that. So if you look at some of these statistics here, 55% of women feel like they are not confident in retirement, right? Just what I said. Most of us, we have all these pieces and parts out there. We don't really know what's happening. We know that it's this magical age that we get to that we can, but we really don't understand what that looks like. That 57% are women who feel like they're not going to have the opportunity to retire. I mean, some of us, look at it and you think, I'm going to be working forever, right? You kind of joke about it, but at the back of your mind, you're thinking that very well could be my reality. And the 48.9 or almost 50% are women who are doing it alone. A lot of times it's not just a divorce or a death or, the fact that women kind of live longer, but most women are actually going into those retirement years sometimes on their own and needing to figure it out and what that looks like. So being a woman, there's a lot of good news to that, right? I mean, now we're business owners and we typically manage things at the house, but there's some not so good news. And one of those is being the fact that we live longer. We're doing our yoga, we're drinking our greens, and we're doing really well. But that means that we're outliving our counterparts. Our men are not living as long. And so now we have to not only navigate that piece, but also navigate it sometimes completely alone. And as you see here, the average age of widowhood is 59. My best friend was 53 when that happened to her. And I mean, that's a lot. If she lives into her 90s and doesn't remarry, and some of you may be experiencing that, that's a long time where you're, spending that time alone. Um, the other half of us are going through a divorce, right? And then, as Ben mentioned, we're spending a lot of our time taking care of everyone else, which means that we spend about 15% of our time outside of the working force. We stay at home, we take care of our kids. Maybe even after that happens, now we're bearing the burden of taking care of our parents and our kids. We're kind of right there in the middle and we're always taking care of everybody else that sometimes we kind of come in last and this is what our life looks like. We have pieces all over the place, these puzzle pieces, and we don't even know how they fit. You might have a pension over here, or you have Social Security and you have healthcare, and you're like, I don't know. You know that they're all there, but you've never had anyone bring it all together for you. And that's what our goal is. That's what we do. So Ben, you want to talk about these?
Yeah, sure. Well, I do want to mention that if you get anything on this webinar tonight or today, is start getting all your ducks in a row, because what Tracy just said, that picture, when I look at all those puzzle pieces everywhere, I think about my little kids and we put puzzles together and I like doing puzzles. That's how in the world do you put all those together? It's fun when you put the whole puzzle, you look at it, it's all full, right? It's done. Same thing with our life. We've got stuff everywhere, insurance and old 401ks, and
Right.
maybe you got divorced and you've got part of an IRA somewhere that your ex-husband had to give you. So the idea is really getting your ducks in a row. Um,
I
you
would
know,
say a lot of people say that, that watching us on a webinar or seeing us in person, most of the people that I talk to, that's what they say. This has forced me to sit down and actually pull everything together because as I said, we don't take the time to do that. We put everything else first. And Ben kind of jokes with me sometimes. He's like, how come you haven't done that yet? And I'm like, because it's the last thing on my list. Like, I'm so
Priorities.
busy taking care of everybody else that doesn't seem like that's a big deal. But you will feel better knowing that it's all,
That's right.
combined together.
Well, and you think about it, 12% of women feel really confident that they can retire.
Which is small.
That's really small. You
Huge.
think about that. 12
Yeah.
out of 100
Yeah.
women are feeling really confident. 53% feel like they're never going to ever retire right? They don't think they have saved enough. They're not sure exactly how retirement's going to even look like. They're thinking they're going to have to work till 70, 75. They just don't know. And a third of the women use a financial advisor, which is why we're here tonight and here today, is
Yeah.
because the idea, we know it's an underserved market, because what Tracy said, priority is taking care of everybody else, whether it's your kids, your husband, your parents.
And one thing I would say is, you hear that term financial advisor. I like to stress this. I mean, people ask me all the time, how are we different? And the reality is, you hear a financial advisor and you think, oh, I have to have a lot of money or they're going to take my money and they're making more money. I mean, that's great. And that's what you want. You want people to kind of look at your money and figure out, how to make it grow for you. But we are a financial planning retirement planner firm where we actually take you and we take all those pieces and put it together. We're not just, looking at one piece and saying, okay, you have this much money to invest. And so we're going to invest it and it's going to grow to this over here. We're trying to say, okay, you have this money, we want to invest it. This money here, you have some life insurance. Okay, let's make sure your wills are up to date, your trusts, all those pieces and parts so that you have an actual plan and not only all the pieces that you have, but how they function and how they're going to work in your life, especially in retirement. Because once you stop working and you stop getting that income, you need to make sure how am I going to get paid? How am I going to pay my bills? And that's what we do that's different. So don't just look at it as working with a financial advisor. You want someone who really understands all the sides that you need to cover. And that's what we do.
That's right. So we're going to give you the opportunity right now to schedule a 15-minute phone consult with us to see how we can help you figure out a little bit about your story, what you've been doing for the last several years of your life, and what's most important to you. Just what Tracy said. It's really, if you look up and down the street, there's tons of advisors that manage money, but there's very few that actually build plans for retirement. That's probably, I would say, the most important. We talk about
Yes.
rates of return and we talk about investments, but we talk about life, right? We talk about what are your goals? What are your values? Where do you want to spend the money? We just had a new client come in, just recently divorced, ended up inheriting some money, and first time she's ever had money in her whole entire life. So first of all, she doesn't really have any idea what to do with it, because now she's got this
Yeah.
money, and how do you stop from spending it, because now you have it, and make sure you keep it for the rest of your life. But I mean, her goals are, I want each year I'd love to take my kids on a beach vacation and pay for it. I've never been able to do that. We've been dirt poor our whole life. Now we've got some money. How can I make that happen? And I need some income too.
Yeah.
So
And make sure it lasts.
yeah, last. So the idea is, your story is going to be totally different than that. I think about a client that had just came in a couple weeks ago, got referred, and her husband died when she was 45 years old. So think about that. 45, husband passes away, two little kids at home, never really remarried, and ended up meeting someone about 20 years later. And then he ended up just passing away last year. So we're going through all her investments and going through her health care, Medicare, legacy planning. And I noticed for some reason her Social Security is really low.
Mm.
I'm thinking, that is really odd. Your Social Security is that low. How are you claiming this? So the idea is, here she's claiming her Social Security on herself
Oh,
and not her
yeah.
ex-husband. Imagine the amount of money she's costed herself. So the idea is of using someone that is going to walk you through the whole process to make sure you're making the best decisions. This little snapshot here is you think about how your money's situated. You may have been saving for a long time. You may just recently started saving here 10, 12 years ago. But you think about worrisome and risk. And we just went through a crazy time in March where the market dropped 30, 35%. You may have been freaked out, scared. What am I going to do? Well, first of all, two-thirds of you aren't using an advisor, right?
So you didn't know how bad it really was.
So A, didn't know how bad it really was. B is sometimes you make a bad decisions when you don't have anybody to lean on. We think about a client that came to us a
Right.
couple of years ago when the market was going down in 2018. Right at the end of it, when the market had kind of settled down, she calls her 401k and puts all her money in cash. So for all of 2019, her money was sitting in cash before she came and saw us. Well, 2019, the market did 31%. So the idea is having a coach, a financial coach, to help you make good decisions, to talk you out of, really selling. I mean, the idea is having someone that's going to help you and walk you through the process so you can kind of go live your life and enjoy those retirement years.
Right. You want to make sure that somebody's looking out for you and watching it because, I mean, I know myself, you know, we already have enough on our plate. We're already worriers. It'd be nice to kind of let something go and let somebody else worry. So, as Ben said, one of the things that financial advisors can do, or what we do for people and all of our clients, we look at the risk. We also look at, like I said, building that income plan. That is our main goal with you, is to put all the pieces in place so that when can I start my income and where's it going to come from? I mean, you have this figure over here, and just think about that. Say you have, $100,000, and you're like, okay, that's what I have to live on. I mean, do you know for sure how much you can pull out of that so that it does last you? I mean, none of us know how long we have, so you definitely want to make sure it lasts as long as possible, as well as in what order. Do I take Social Security now, or do I wait to take it later? Um, how's my money going to grow? Um, am I going to be able to afford if I have a health issue? What do I do in a situation like that? And healthcare is, we know, is going up and up every year. And then, of course, the biggest thing, only 12% of women actually feel confident in this, is how long is my money going to last? Most people don't feel like they're going to have enough. You want to outlive your money. You want to be able to give it to your kids and have that legacy plan, or your grandkids. And building that retirement plan is what we do. And this is one of the ways we do it, is we look at the bucket approach, and I'll let Ben explain that to you.
Yeah, when you think about your money, is we really like to categorize and putting our money into buckets so you can really understand. We investing can be really, really complicating. There's so many things you can put your money into. But working with us, I'll say, is we want to make sure you understand what your money is doing for you. Right. So what we simply use a bucket approach. And if you look at the three buckets there, safety, income, and growth, it's safe bucket, making sure you've got some cash in the bank, that cars and roofs and whatever you need cash for, you've got enough cash in the bank for anything emergency wise. And you look at the second bucket, is that income bucket, right? It's that social security. You may have a pension from working, maybe you've got a pension from an ex-husband. It's really putting those pieces together and saying, what, how much money do I really need every month to cover all the bases, right? To cover all my needs, right? How do those numbers add up? How much money do I need to have in that income bucket to make sure I'm going to get a paycheck forever, no matter what the market does? And the third bucket is growth bucket. Everybody wants to see their money grow, you know, but they want to see their money last is
Yeah,
probably the most
that's a better
important.
way to put it.
Yeah, is the most important thing. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Is we talk about optimizing your Social Security. The idea, you think of Social Security, is really complex because there's so many different ways you can claim Social Security. You can claim on yourself, you can claim on your ex-husband, you can claim on your husband. If you were married for 10 years, you can claim on another ex-husband. So the idea is, how in the world do you solve that little puzzle of, when do I claim Social Security? Do I claim on myself now, then my ex-husband later, or my husband later? So there's many things that you need to think about when you walk through to make sure you're getting the most money you possibly can.
And one of the reasons is what we talked about prior to, is the fact that women spend years out of the workforce. And if you look at this, is Mrs. Jones here, she started out strong, it was growing, and then all these empty years, and then of course some growth after. We all know what that probably was, right? You stayed home, you raised your kids, whatever, you took that time off during that time, versus Mr. Jones, who just kind of kept trucking all along, and
Yeah, never missed a beat.
never missed a beat, still continued to work. And what that does to your earnings when you look over, your lifetime average, which is basically what your Social Security is calculated from. So
Well, if you think about that, you spent the X years out of the workforce. So you didn't build your Social Security, you didn't get a chance to build 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, whatever. You have no chance of doing that. So if you're married at the time, your husband's literally saving money's growing, Social Security benefits are growing. So the idea is, um, is getting help. That's really the biggest thing. The first step for you today is listening to this webinar, is to call us, right? That's the first and foremost to see how we can help you. Um, that's the cool thing about us and our firm. With regardless of what you have, we're going to help you and get you in the right direction. That is the coolest part. We've done that a number of times,
And
Tracy and
that's
I.
why we do this is, I mean, we just really feel so led to make sure that people are getting the help that they need. And there is nothing more rewarding than that. That's for sure.
Well, we manage money and here, but the first thing we do is making sure, and we've done this, and what the cool thing about it is you get off on the right foot. So starting today, say, you know what, I'm going to think about me, right? We've got a new year, new you, putting things in order. 2020 was a crazy year for everybody, right? So 2021 better be better for all of us.
I almost hate to say that, it might jinx it.
Right.
So again, just another thing, as Ben was saying, is knowing, how to take those benefits from Social Security based on whether you're a widow or a divorcee. Because at the end of the day, 61% of women are going to be responsible for their financial retirement. And that's not always because of the fact that you're single, but if you are outliving your spouse, that comes into play, whether you're widowed in general or you're divorced. But even sometimes, like I said, a lot of times we do manage this, all the income at home. We don't kind of have everything in place, but at the end of the day, we are kind of the budgeters and making sure that we're taking care of things in that regard. So another thing that comes up sometimes is taxes. We're just going to touch on this briefly, because it can be an important piece that you need to look at with retirement.
Right. You may be worried, when I retire, what am I going to owe Uncle Sam? You've got money in your 401k at work or IRA. How much can I pull out, and how much are the taxes going to be? You may be thinking of a new client that just came in, remarried. She's still working or actually getting ready to retire here in a couple months. And for her goal was, you know what, I've got this 401k. I want to give this to my kids, right? What are the implications? How can I start moving this money out and put it into a Roth IRA to avoid, so my kids, in 15 or 20 years can avoid paying tax. So you may be thinking that too. We have that a ton because I'll tell you, it's most women, if you have kids, you want to figure out how in the world can I take care of my kids, because that's the
Because
natural.
again, we're still not taking care of ourselves. We're
Exactly.
still looking at the end of the day. How can we take care of our families?
That's the natural thing, is how can I
It
take
is.
care of my kids? They'll say I'll actually live without income so my kids can get money at the end.
Yeah.
We're still worrying about somebody else. So the idea is, having an idea on taxes. How much am I going to pay in taxes? Retirement's different. You're just used to getting taxes taken out of your paycheck every single time you get paid. That's different. You got Social Security now. You've got some money probably coming out of your 401k or IRA. How is that all going to affect you? And that's stuff we walk through every single person that comes to see us.
So again, just to kind of pull those puzzle pieces together, if you remember at the beginning of the presentation, we showed all those pieces here, there, and everywhere. And at Integrated Wealth Management, we always talk about our 5-step retirement game plan. And that's not only that income plan that we feel is the most important, but that tax plan that we just touched on, as well as an investment plan. So your money is growing. Legacy, like we said, so that you're making sure that if your desire is to leave it to your kids or to your grandkids or to whatever cause, you hold true to you, is making sure that you are able to provide that, as well as making sure healthcare is taken care of. So we have kind of a 5-step. We look at all those pieces and we pull that whole plan, because again, hopefully why you're here, only 37% of women work with a financial advisor. And, that number should be higher. You're worth that. You know, we know that women desire to be knowledgeable. All of you who registered for this webinar, we see that time and time again, that it's women who aren't afraid to be educated about it. We want to know, we want to have that knowledge, and we want to feel empowered through that. And so we hope that that's why you're here today, is to kind of get that knowledge under your belt and start with this new year to put pieces into place so that where you're headed. So again, we're going to throw this offer up here. If you want to give us a call, no obligation on your side of things. It really is just to kind of have a conversation to talk further about anything that we didn't get to cover today. We'll also talk about fees and charges that are in there. Like a lot of times you don't know how to look at those statements. And I don't say that like you don't know because you don't know. It's just, there's all kinds of hidden fees in there. And we want to make sure that, if you're paying for something, one thing we do feel is if you're paying for something, you should be getting something. And so we'll take a look at that for you as well as looking at your goals and getting that income plan put together.
Well, and the biggest thing, not only with the planning, is are you invested right? Do your investments fit you? That's really the biggest thing. So if you got it scared last March and you said, "Oh my goodness, I've lost a lot of money more than I really feel comfortable," but you really don't have anybody to help you. That's why we do these webinars. We get lots of phone calls of women that have either have their 401ks or they've had a left a job and have another 401k. Tons of phone calls because they simply need help, and that's what we're here to offer you. So, uh, in ending this webinar, we'd love to schedule a 15-minute phone call to really share our story with you and listen to your story. You know, I think about my grandma, 99 years old, lived through three husbands. So imagine, retired at 60. So she's been retired for almost
Oh my
40
gosh.
years. Fortunately, she was here in Akron. Now she lives or back here, but lived in Florida for some time, but worked for one of the big rubber companies, had Social Security, had a pension, had her ducks in a row. And think about, how long she's lived. And one of the most important things was making sure her money lasts as long as she has, which, by the grace of God has. So thanks so much for joining. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure talking with you, and we hope we can catch up sometime soon.
All right. Have a good day.